what is the impact on classical education? Why are these books still so important to be read today? I mean, after all, we're talking about books that are, close to 3,000 years old here. Well, as Edward Collins states, quote, there are in Homer and the other poets countless details filling out this general plot and much vivid description and character portrayal. The story of Troy is one of the most fully and ingenious developed of all legends. It forms the basis for a large proportion of the most famous writings of Greece, Rome, and the Middle Ages, and it enters extensively into the work of early English authors, including Chaucer, Spenser, and Shakespeare. And so there are just countless literary giants who look back to this. Even, like I was saying, Ezra Pound, 20th century poet, says if you could really learn ancient Greek, you could get all of poetry in Homer. So the Iliad and the Odyssey present a kind of a mythological history. There's a blend of myth and history. These were historical events, but of course they're blended with mythology. And one theory of many classical stories holds that these historical events grew into legends, and then those legends grew into myths. This is kind of an apotheosis view of ancient mythologies, that somehow or another these mythologies grew out of actual historical persons and myths and so forth. But their persistent traction on our culture merits their reading. And besides, you find a good translation and you will see that these are just downright entertaining to read in themselves. It's kind of a page turner. Now, while few today believe the mythology behind Homer's writings, few if any believe them, it would be rather myopic to say that all of these mythologies that are laced through them detract from the story's significance. There are very strong themes here, such as honor and duty, fighting for your country, fighting to defend the people you love. And indeed, a lot of people look and see, well, the real hero of this story wasn't Achilles, in the Iliad at least. The real hero wasn't Achilles, it was Hector. Hector resonates deeply with many people because he's fighting to defend his homeland. The idea of perseverance and tenacity, all of these things are traits that human beings value in societies throughout and across all cultures. Okay, the valuing of home, the practice of hospitality, will resonate down through the centuries and through these stories and into the heart of Western civilization. So, if the human situation has not fundamentally changed since these days of Achilles and Odysseus and Hector and so forth, then they can still speak to us. Perhaps our natures have not changed since those times. These deep human longings and this human experience is still fundamentally the same. We still speak of a long journey home as an odyssey, and we're riveted by such stories. Just think of some contemporary movies, for example, that tell an odyssey. One I can think of is Castaway, where a man has to labor very long and very hard to come home. Saving Private Ryan is the same way, as is Apollo 13. And I promise, they're not all Tom Hanks movies that tell these. Even the movie Interstellar, for example, is about kind of a sci-fi version of trying to people going off into different parts of the universe and then trying to come home. All right, and so this is even though it's told in completely different context, the story of getting home is something that has a deep pull on most people's psychology.